www.worldofitech.com. Welcome to Software Engineering Tutorial. In this tutorial, you will learn: what is software engineer? What is a software developer? Software engineer versus developer. Best practices for software engineers. Best practices for software developers. Challenges of software engineers. Challenges of software developer. Role and responsibilities of software engineers and developers. Software engineer versus software developer. What's the difference? What is software engineer? A software engineer is a professional who applies the principles of software engineering for designing, development, maintenance, testing, and evaluation of computer software. What is a software developer? Software developers are professionals who build software which runs into different types of computer. They write code without any preparation. The application could be a desktop application like Photoshop, mobile applications like Instagram, web applications like Facebook and Twitter. Both software developers and software engineers are highly skilled professionals who can build software from the ground up. Distinguishing between the two is in some cases tricky, however, because employers aren't generally exact about the two roles. Meanwhile, the job descriptions themselves cover a piece. Adding to the confusion? Software engineers once in a while get involved in software development. However, most software developers are not software engineers. Not to worry. We did a little digging into the difference between the two fields to make them understood. The role of software developers is ordinarily more limited in scale than an engineer's role, allowing developers to be more creative in their solutions. Software engineers work on a larger scale, so they will in general be more systematic in their thinking. Key differences: software developer versus software engineer. Software developers generally spend less time in school, exercise a little more creativity, work on projects that can be more limited in scale, often collaborate with individual clients. Software engineers generally earn higher salaries, conduct more analysis, work on projects that can be larger in scope, often solve problems for all users. Software engineer is a professional who applies the principles of software engineering for designing, development, maintenance, testing, and evaluation of computer software, whereas software developer is a professional who builds software which runs into different types of computer. Software engineer is a team activity while software developer is basically a solitary activity. Software engineer works with different segments of the hardware system, whereas software developers write a total program. Software engineer creates the tools to develop software while software developers use ready-made tools to build applications. Software engineer will in general address issues on a much larger scope, whereas software developers will in general do everything that engineers do but on a limited scale. Software engineer versus developer. Here are some significant difference between a software engineer and software developer. Parameter. Degree. Software engineer. 4-year degrees in software engineering are extra advantages than those in software development. Software developer. Software development degrees are treated as specializations for information technology or computer programming. Parameter. Type of activity. Software engineer. Software engineering is a team activity. Software developer. Development is primarily a solitary activity. Parameter. Work process. Software engineer. A software engineer is involved in the complete process. Software developer. Development is one aspect of the software project building process. Parameter. Working style. Software engineer. A software engineer works on components with other engineers to build a system. Software developer. A developer writes a complete program. Parameter. Career path. Software engineer. Software engineer. Principal software engineer. Lead software development engineer. Software developer. Software architect. Developer. Parameter. Working style. Software engineer. Engineers will in general address issues on a much larger scale. Along these lines, there isn't much room left for creative solutions, and instead, they should be more systematic in their thinking. Software developer. Developers will in general do everything that engineers do, however on a limited scale. This allows them to be more creative than an engineer, coming up with solutions. Parameter. Tools. Software engineer. The software engineer is who creates the tools to develop software, for example, Visual Studio and Eclipse. Software developer. They use software tools to develop web, mobile, and desktop apps. Parameter. Salaries. Software engineer. The average salary for a software engineer is $105,861 per year in the United States. Software developer. The average salary for a software developer is $92,380 per year in the United States. Best practices for software engineers. Here are some best practices for software engineers. Software engineers should act so that it is gainful to the client as well the employer. Ensure software products and related changes that should meet the highest proficient standards. Software engineers ought to ready to keep up integrity and freedom in their professional methodology. Able to promote an ethical methodology for software development and maintenance. Software engineers shall be supportive of their colleagues. Best practices for software developers. Here are some significant best practices for software developers. Understand how your code helps drive the general business. Use the code successfully in the project. Write your day-by-day coding goals. Plan how to move toward your immediate coding task. Start the project with the hardest part of your project. Challenges of software engineers. Here are some basic challenges faced by software engineers. In safety-critical areas like space, nuclear power plants, and so on, the expense of software failure can be enormous because lives are at risk. Increased market demand is quite a challenge for software engineers. Dealing with the increased intricacy of software consistently demand new applications. The variety of software systems ought to communicating with each other. Challenges of software developer. Following are some common challenges faced by software developer. Misinterpreted end-user necessities. Not ready to manage changing necessities. Work on models which doesn't fit together. Software that is hard to keep up or extend. Late discovery of some significant project flaws. Poor quality of the software is another common challenge which is frequently faced by a software, particularly in low-cost projects. Role and responsibilities of software engineers and developers. Software engineer and developer skills. Should have amazing analytical skills. The individual ought to have experience creating and keeping up IT architectures and databases. Pattern design and experience with cloud-based infrastructure. Hands-on experience on multi-center CPU. Professionals should have the option to use different software development strategies like Agile, Scrum, Kanban. Roles and responsibilities. Work across teams to give technical direction and support the entire development process of the product. Develop a thoroughly examined plan which assists clients to produce a program which meets the needs of a client. Prepare a training manual that can be used by application users. Attend meetings with clients, computer programmers, and other staff. Improves operations by finishing systems analysis work. Obtaining and licensing software subsequent to acquiring relevant data from vendors. Providing significant data through the collection, analysis, and summarizing of services and development issues. Build tools for improving internal productivity. Thanks for watching. We hope you found this tutorial helpful, and we would love to hear your feedback in the comment section below. And show us what you've learned by sharing your projects with us.